Ellen DeGeneres had interviewed countless guests celebrating life-changing windfalls over her decades-long career, from surprise inheritance stories to business success tales, but nothing could have prepared her for the afternoon, when what seemed like a routine interview about sudden wealth would evolve into one of the most poignant explorations of money, happiness, and human nature she had ever witnessed. What started as a celebration of fortune became a sobering examination of how dramatically winning can sometimes feel like losing, and how the things we dream of most might be the very things that destroy what we already cherish. It was a bright Thursday afternoon at the Ellen Studios, and the atmosphere was celebratory as they prepared for what was scheduled to be an uplifting episode featuring stories of unexpected good fortune and positive life changes. Ellen, wearing a vibrant yellow blazer over navy pants, was looking forward to interviewing Michael Thompson, a 41-year-old former construction worker whose recent $47 million lottery jackpot win had made headlines across the country and captured the public's imagination as the ultimate American dream come true. Michael's story, as initially presented to the production team, was exactly the kind of feel-good narrative that Ellen loved to feature. An ordinary working man who had bought a lottery ticket on a whim, discovered he had won an astronomical sum, and was now planning to use his newfound wealth to help his family and community while living out his lifelong dreams. According to the preliminary interview materials, Michael was excited about his win and eager to share his gratitude and plans for the future with Ellen's audience. Our next guest went from earning $18 an hour as a construction worker to winning $47 million in the lottery. Ellen announced to the enthusiastic studio audience, "He's proof that sometimes life really can change overnight, and that dreams do come true when you least expect them. His story reminds us all that good things happen to good people. Please welcome lottery winner Michael Thompson." The audience erupted in warm, excited applause as Michael walked onto the stage with what appeared to be a genuine but somewhat strained smile. He was a stocky man with graying hair and work-weathered hands, wearing an obviously new and expensive navy suit that seemed to fit awkwardly on his frame. What struck Ellen most was that despite his smile, there was a heaviness in his eyes that seemed inconsistent with someone who had just won nearly $50 million. "Michael, welcome to the show," Ellen said warmly as they embraced briefly. "Thank you for having me, Ellen. I've been looking forward to this," Michael replied, though his voice carried a weariness that Ellen found surprising given the circumstances. $47 million. That must have been an incredible moment when you realized you'd won. Michael's smile faltered slightly as he settled into his chair. It was definitely life-changing, Ellen. That's for sure." Ellen noticed the careful way Michael phrased his response. "Tell us about that moment when you checked the numbers. What was that like?" "Well, I bought the ticket at the gas station where I always stop for coffee before work," Michael began, his voice growing more animated as he recalled the memory. "I didn't check it for 3 days because I never really expected to win anything significant. When I finally looked at the numbers and realized they all matched, I honestly thought there had been a mistake." "What was the first thing you did when you realized it was real?" Michael paused for a moment, and Ellen noticed something shift in his expression. "I called my wife Linda. She was at work, and when I told her, she hung up on me because she thought I was playing a joke." The audience laughed at this relatable detail, but Ellen sensed there was more complexity to the story than Michael was initially sharing. "And how has your life changed since then?" "I imagine it's been quite an adjustment." Michael's expression grew more serious, and he shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "Ellen, that's actually something I've been struggling with. Everyone expects me to be over the moon about winning, and don't get me wrong, I'm grateful. But the changes in my life haven't all been what I expected." Ellen leaned forward with genuine curiosity. "What do you mean by that, Michael?" "Well, for starters, I can't go back to work," Michael said, his voice carrying a note of sadness that surprised both Ellen and the audience. "I loved my job. I loved working with my hands, being part of a crew, building things that would last. But my foreman said it wouldn't be fair to the other guys for someone with $47 million to be taking a job that a working man needs." Ellen felt a pang of unexpected sympathy as she realized that Michael's windfall had cost him something he valued. I hadn't thought about that aspect of winning. Your work was important to you. It was everything to me, Michael said, his voice growing stronger with emotion. For 23 years, I woke up every morning knowing exactly who I was and what I was supposed to do. Now I wake up every morning as the lottery winner, and I don't know what that means or how I'm supposed to live up to it. Ellen was beginning to understand that Michael's story was far more complex than the typical lottery winner narrative. What other changes have you experienced? Michael took a deep breath as if steeling himself for a difficult conversation. Ellen, I need to be honest with your viewers about something that nobody talks about when they dream about winning the lottery. Money doesn't just change your bank account, it changes everything and everyone around you. Can you give us some examples? My brother hasn't spoken to me in 6 months, Michael said, his voice breaking slightly. He asked me for a loan to save his business, $50,000. And when I said I needed time to think about it and consult with financial advisors, he accused me of forgetting where I came from. Ellen felt her heart sink as she listened to the pain in Michael's voice. That must be incredibly difficult. It is. And it's not just my brother. Linda and I have been married for 19 years, and we've never fought about money because we never had any to fight about. Now every decision is a negotiation. She wants to move to a bigger house, but I love our home. She wants to quit her job as a teacher, but I think she loves teaching. We're arguing about things we never even thought about before. Ellen was struck by the profound loneliness in Michael's description of his new life. Michael, it sounds like winning the lottery has been isolating for you. That's exactly the word, Michael said with relief at being understood. I'm surrounded by financial advisors and investment managers and people who want to help me spend my money, but I miss my old life where people just wanted to have a beer after work and complain about the weather. Ellen turned to address the audience, many of whom were listening with expressions of surprise and empathy. Michael, this is not the typical lottery winner story we usually hear. Do you ever regret winning? Michael considered the question carefully. I don't regret winning, Ellen, but I regret how naive I was about what winning would mean. I thought money would solve problems, not create new ones I'd never imagined. What kind of new problems? Well, for instance, I can't make a friend without wondering if they're interested in me or my money, Michael explained. I can't do something nice for someone without them expecting it to be extravagant because they know I can afford extravagant. And I can't complain about anything without people thinking I'm ungrateful. Ellen felt a deep appreciation for Michael's honesty. Michael, what would you want people to know about sudden wealth that they might not understand? I'd want them to know that money doesn't buy happiness. It buys options, Michael said thoughtfully. And sometimes having too many options is more overwhelming than having too few. When I was making $18 an hour, life was simple. I knew what I could and couldn't afford, and I was content within those boundaries. Do you feel pressure to be happy because of your financial situation? Absolutely, Michael replied immediately. People look at me like I'm crazy when I say I miss my old life. They say, how can you miss working construction when you never have to work again? But they don't understand that work gave me purpose, identity, and community. Money can't replace those things. Ellen was moved by Michael's perspective. Michael, what do you think happiness actually requires? I think happiness requires knowing who you are and feeling like you belong somewhere, Michael said with conviction. For 23 years, I was Michael Thompson, construction worker, husband to Linda, brother to Jim, guy who coached Little League on weekends. Now I'm Michael Thompson, lottery winner, and I'm still figuring out what that means and where I fit. Ellen felt compelled to offer some wisdom from her own experience with fame and wealth. Michael, I understand some of what you're going through. When my career took off and I became financially successful, I struggled with similar feelings about relationships and authenticity. How did you handle it? It took time, but I learned that the money doesn't have to define you. You get to decide how to integrate it into who you already are, Ellen explained. You don't have to stop being the person you were just because your circumstances changed. Michael's expression brightened slightly. What do you mean? I mean, maybe you can't go back to your old construction job, but maybe you can start a company that employs other construction workers. Maybe you can't have the same relationship with money that you used to, but you can decide to use your wealth in ways that honor the values you had before you won. Like what? Ellen was warming to this theme. Like maybe you could fund scholarships for kids who want to learn trades but can't afford training. Like maybe you could start a foundation that helps small businesses like your brother's without making it feel like charity. Michael was listening intently. You think I could stay true to who I am while also being responsible with this money? I think you have to, Ellen said gently. Michael, the fact that you're struggling with these questions tells me that you're exactly the kind of person who should have won this money. Someone who takes the responsibility seriously. Ellen turned to address the cameras directly. Folks, what Michael is teaching us today is that every blessing comes with challenges, and that sometimes getting everything we think we want forces us to figure out what we actually need. She looked back at Michael with warmth and respect. Michael, what would you want to say to people who are dreaming about winning the lottery? Michael thought carefully before responding. I'd say dream about it, but also think about what you'd do with the responsibility that comes with it. Don't just fantasize about what you'd buy. Think about who you'd become and how you'd stay connected to the things that make you happy without money. And what's your plan going forward? I'm going to take your advice, Michael said with the first genuine smile Ellen had seen from him. Linda and I are going to start a foundation that provides interest-free loans to small businesses and trade school scholarships. We're going to stay in our house that we love, and I'm going to find ways to build things again, maybe schools or community centers. Ellen felt a surge of admiration for Michael's approach. That sounds like a way to honor both your good fortune and your values. Ellen, talking to you today has helped me realize that I don't have to choose between being grateful for the money and missing my old life. I can be both. 3 months later, Ellen received an update that warmed her heart. Michael had indeed started the Thompson Foundation, which had already provided loans to 12 small businesses and full scholarships to 30 students entering trade programs. Most remarkably, he had convinced his former construction crew to work for the foundation, building affordable housing for low-income families. 6 months later, Michael returned to Ellen's show with his wife Linda and his brother Jim, with whom he had reconciled. The difference in Michael's demeanor was striking. He carried himself with the confidence of someone who had found a way to integrate his windfall with his identity. Michael, you look like a completely different person, Ellen observed during the follow-up interview. I feel like myself again, Michael replied. It just took me a while to figure out that being a lottery winner didn't mean I had to stop being everything else I was. And Linda, how are you and Michael doing? Linda smiled warmly at her husband. We're better than ever because we're working together towards something meaningful instead of arguing about what the money means. Ellen addressed the audience with satisfaction. What Michael taught us that day is that true wealth isn't about how much money you have. It's about how well you understand yourself and how effectively you can use your resources to create the life that aligns with your values. The episode became one of Ellen's most shared segments, not because it was entertaining, but because it offered a perspective on wealth and happiness that challenged common assumptions and provided wisdom for anyone navigating unexpected life changes. Michael showed us, Ellen reflected months later, that sometimes the most generous thing we can do for others is to be honest about our struggles, even when those struggles seem like luxuries. Real wisdom comes from admitting that having everything doesn't automatically mean understanding anything. Because sometimes the most valuable lesson about prosperity comes from someone brave enough to admit that abundance without purpose feels like poverty, and that true wealth lies not in what we can buy, but in how well we know ourselves and how effectively we can serve others.